Hello, Daisy. Oh, I think I muted you. Did I mute you?
You did.
Okay, good. Right off the bat, I am messing up the tech. Yes. Every week I mess up the tech. Awesome.
What,
How
what makes us real? You know what I mean? So
certainly does. Now, what's interesting is we are live, but we were actually a little early. So I want to give everyone a little time. We can just kind of chit chat for a minute and say hi. I I've got we've got our guest in the wings, but we'll give everybody about 30 seconds to join us. And they won't know that I messed up the tech already in the very first second of the show.
I'm
So it's
sure.
good. Yeah. It's
I see
great.
it recording.
Yeah. It's so unbelievable to me. I'm so good at it. I love that I'm really good at something. That's fantastic.
Great. You
Yay.
can add that to your experience.
Yay. We'll cut this all out. Nobody will see any of this. It's all good. It's all good. Well, let's get started. I am so excited. Welcome to the Glass House, where we look at business from the inside out and expose the gap between what's embedded and what's actually embodied. It's a really exciting day for us. Last episode, we had our friend Marcus Bosberger, and he laid out the reality, workforce planning in the AI era, and the demands of continuous adoption and adaption, not annual cycles. But here's what happens next. The planning has to lead to action, right? The roles are going to shift. The teams are going to restructure. Sometimes people leave. This is all what happens when we take a look at what's all the changes. And this is where most organizations are getting it catastrophically wrong. They treat the workforce transitions, I'm going to say this, like a wake, right? Think about it. They announce it, they execute it, and they move on. One day of acknowledgement and then silence, not another word. Meanwhile, the people who remain behind are sitting in the wreckage, wondering what happened and whether they're next, right? And this is something that is really scary. So today we're going to introduce a slightly different model, right? It comes from a very unlikely place, an idea that came from a conversation that I had with a friend, and it's the Jewish tradition of sitting Shiva. Now, if you've never heard about that, we're going to talk about it. And I'm Shara Halixer. I am the founder and chief momentum officer of Engage 3P. Joining me, as always, is my partner in crime, a little bit, podcast crime. Still call this a podcast. I don't know why, but that's what I'm going to go for it. Daisy Watkins, who's the founder of DW Concepts. And today, our guest is my friend Lora Boltniew. She is an HR executive with over 20 years of leading people strategy. Daisy, you're going to introduce her a little bit more later, which is really exciting, and Lora can talk about it. So, hey, let's just dig in.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. From the outside, what we're seeing is that candidates and employees see everything. Glassdoor reviews, LinkedIn posts from laid off colleagues, the silence from leadership, employer brand damage from poorly handled transitions can take years to repair. Okay, and the cost to organizations, their ability to attract top talent if they do this.
So it's how organizations plan for and execute workforce changes and it's often ignoring the human aftermath, right? Leadership focuses on the decision, the communication, the cost savings, but nobody is owning what happens to those people who stay behind. The embedded message is we don't care about our people. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. The embodied reality is figure it out for yourself. So workforce restructuring is accelerating all that. AI adoption, economic pressure, the organizational pivots mean more transitions more frequently. And organizations that get this wrong repeatedly will hollow out their culture and lose their institutional knowledge that really gives them their edge, makes them competitive.
Absolutely. So Laura has been on both sides. She's designed and led workforce transitions at major organizations. And recently, she experienced what it feels like to be on the receiving end. The dual perspective is exactly what this conversation needs. Welcome, Laura, to the show.
Hi, Laura.
Hello, ladies and everybody listening in. Thank you so much for having me join this conversation today. I am nervous and excited and thrilled all at the same time. So thank you so much.
It's just a conversation. We're just.
I know. You know me. I want to be prepared.
I know you're so prepared. It's amazing. I love it. But I want to share with our audience. You and I talked last week. So we were planning to have you on the show. And you and I scheduled a call for Saturday because you told me on Friday, and I hope it's okay to share this because we talked about it. But you said that you had a funeral on Friday. And so Saturday, you and I chatted. And of course, the first thing out of my mind was, hey, what happened? And you started to tell me, and we just started having a friend conversation, not a business conversation. And it just led to this conversation, right? Because I then told you the story of when my stepbrother died, who had 3 kids. He died in his 50s. The youngest was a young teen. And as someone who, my tradition is sitting Shiva, and we focus on, and I don't mean to sound crass with this, but it's like, get them in the ground, right? We bury within 24 hours. And then the focus is on the family, the ones who are left behind. And so you and I were talking about that, right? And then I told you my funny story about Brian's wake, and because he wasn't Jewish. And so, but that's for another conversation for another time. Daisy, I'll have to tell you all about that. And I was and then we had the wake, and then we had the funeral, and we had a lunch. And then it was like, okay, bye, we're done. And I looked over at his kids, and, their mom was there, their family was there, but it was so foreign to me that, like, everyone left. That was it. And so that's how we got into this whole conversation. And then somehow, I don't remember the connection, it then led to talking about business stuff, which was crazy.
So I think the connection where we dovetailed it into this was the experience of grief.
Right.
Grief isn't just for the moments where we lose a family member or a friend and we're at the wake or the Shiva, but we're experiencing grief in our normal lives, looking at the state of the world. Depending where you are in the world, where you are in the country, people are experiencing different levels of grief there. And grief from a layoff experience, from a reorg experience, it's not really talked about.
No,
it's really not talked about. Being in HR for as long as I've been, and I love being in the HR profession. I'm an HR business partner in my DNA before I even knew that that's how I was going to present and share my experiences and the value that I bring with the people around me, work or home or whatever. It's just how I see the world. I want to understand what's happening. And the grief aspect is something that needs to be a more prevalent topic, hands down. And not in a taboo way of, oh, don't talk about grief at work because, this is a business environment and this is professional and you can't talk about that. But then why do we have employee assistance programs?
Right. And that's
why do we have support services like that, right?
Why do we have support services? I want to say, first of all, for all of you who are watching, we welcome your comments. I've got the comments on the screen this time. I didn't mess that up this week. So we would love to hear from you. So please give us your comments because we'd love to bring you into the conversation and share your thoughts and ideas. Show of hands, if you're willing. How many have been laid off, or also an HR practitioner have done the laying off, or both, right? Both. It's a difficult experience all around. And like I said in the beginning, they're not getting it right. They're simply not, in my opinion, right? We can't expect people to go through that kind of change and not have anything to support them after that, right? And I think companies are so afraid to talk about it, right? Why did we do this? What was the reason behind the layoffs, the organizational shift? How many times have I worked with someone and all of a sudden they're gone and nobody will tell me anything? And the company fears that somehow there's a lawsuit pending, which that can be managed effectively. So yeah, I think it's horrible. And I think the idea of pivoting to, yes, we need to do this, right? And the planning is done and all that's done at the corporate level, right? But then saying, okay, what are we going to do to ensure that people continue to thrive inside the organization after the fact? And that's what we want to pose today.
I believe there's positive intention in general, right? I think back to all the experiences that I've had having to orchestrate some of these reorganizations, literally having the conversations with the employees, prepping senior leaders, doing all of that preparatory work is really, really important. And, if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. I can share a checklist that I use, but a checklist is a checklist is a checklist.
Right.
If you're not understanding the step 1 through step 5 piece of it, and the step 5 and beyond includes the continued support, the continued intentional planning and connection with the survivors of these reorganizations, then you're missing the boat. And you may think, well, yeah, I know that, I want to keep my top people and I want to keep my top talent. Saying and doing are two completely different actions. Let's be real. Right. And I agree, there's always an opportunity to be better. And a lot of companies do it well. A lot of companies could improve. Somewhere, I feel like we within the HR broader organization, in whatever capacity that we're impacting or impacted by these changes in our companies, we have the opportunity to stand up and say, I think that we should do it X, Y, Z, and here's why. And that's where the strategic leadership comes into play, in my opinion, in my experience. I don't know everything. I've never been in every company, but I do know what has worked and what has failed, so to speak. And the failures always lead to learnings. Some of the things that you mentioned, Shira, around, doing the planning and making sure you have scripts and communications, etc. All of that is good. You can't start it 5 days before you expect to exit people. No. So just as we may be talking about what is day 7, day 14, day 30 look like for survivors, which I know we'll touch on a little bit later, you have to back into this thing. Right. So if you can start planning 3 months before you actually have to do these exits and have this experience impact your organization, start as early as possible. Determine what your criteria is. Is it restructuring? Is it complete headcount loss, what have you? And then what is going to happen with the people, the survivors that are left? Are you going to help balance their workload, or do you expect them to figure it out on their own? Because if you expect them to figure it out on their own, chances are it's just not going to happen the way you anticipate. So embedding that into your planning is just as important as figuring out the right communication. Do we have a town hall or not? Do we offer severance packages? All of that. It is the post-traumatic stress experience that has to be included and embedded in that. So I love what you said at the beginning, the embedded and the embodied. Let's embed it so it is embodied in it going forward, rather than just like a one quick hit. And like you said, let's move on. Everybody get back to business. Right. Get back to business. Come on, pull up your bootstraps. Let's go. It never works out that way because, by the way, guess what? We're human. Emotions, life.
It's crazy. So I put up on the screen the banner, if you built a humane layoff playbook, what are your 3 non-negotiables? So Daisy, can you think of one? Lora, what would be one of yours? So our audience, I would love to know what would be something that would be a non-negotiable that would be the right way, the best way? Because what we're thinking about is not just the people that you're laying off that are leaving. We're talking about the people who are staying behind. And then Lora, you made the great point. It's what happens to the workload? What happens to the customer? What happens to, how is all of that? And it isn't just internal. Daisy, I know you're going to talk about this. It extends outside the organization to the customer base, right? If you're a salesperson or you're a customer support person and all of a sudden that person just poof, disappears and they've built relationships with those customers, how is that handled and managed? Right? Is the company thinking about that? So I'd love to know what you guys think, and on our audience, if there's something that they would consider a non-negotiable in the way that we approach it.
Well, mine's definitely the workload. I've been through a few of these layoffs, one as the one laying off, and clearly me being laid off as well. It's the workload. So it's in the world of MSP, right? So what the layoffs are happening at the corporate side, which means that's our support system. That's the one that helps drive the business for us. We're front facing and I'm client facing. So everything needs to be nice and cool and calm. And, definitely not going to announce what's going on the back end. Like, we might experience some delays because we just got rid of, your 2 support people that manages all your compliance documents for you. So there's going to be a delay in that. So that's really important, because how we're going to deliver that message, or if it's going to impact the client, is really critical. And from my experience, they did it really quickly, meaning that Monday, let's talk about the support people are going to be gone because of financial reasons, and then we're restructuring both reasons. I don't know what the restructure is going to look like. How are they going to, support that account? And they also look at it from, are you creating enough revenue so that you can have that extra support or not? So there's two things, but that wasn't communicated in the front end. Makes sense. So they just decided that and Laura, you can probably relate to this. All of a sudden, like, what? I need to announce this, and now I need to talk to these people. Affected drastically. And I know you're kind of put in the middle to come up with the nice, be as authentic as possible, that this is not your fault, that type of stuff. So that's really critical. Especially, you need to communicate to your front end people what's going on, because that affects your business as well and your delivery, and it could affect downward of your sales also, and or your client leaving because of that.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of great comments. Diana said, treating the impacted with dignity and respect, that treat the remaining with compassion and patience. Absolutely. And Terry like-mindedly said, listening and to understand the people to be able to support them. So you mentioned the town hall, Laura, and then what? Right?
Exactly. So it doesn't stop with the one and done either. So piece, you do need to, I believe that a great practice is to communicate within a town hall experience. And that's not my non-negotiable, but so I'll share that separately. But since we're on the topic of it, the town hall is necessary. If senior leaders want to be taken seriously and trusted, then they need to be vulnerable. They need to be courageous in these difficult moments. And they need to be out in front of all of their employees. Now, depending upon if your company's all remote or in person, you can figure out what works best for you. But at the very least, within a couple of weeks of that exit experience for many, you need to have a town hall. Don't shy away from it, because people are talking already. So wouldn't you want to be in front of it, like Terry is talking to, and Diana as well, and somebody else just added in communication and authenticity and empathy. Empathy is not that soft, squishy thing anymore. This is a business skill. And thank God it's a business skill finally. When I started hearing the word empathy as a business skill, a few years ago, I'm like, thank goodness it has come to the forefront, because many of us have been working that way, and it was always looked at, but like, do you know you're so soft and squishy? Come on now. It's real, right? We're all humans at the end of the day. But having not just a town hall, have your senior leaders talk with your high potentials in critical roles, the people that you need to stay and the ones that need to be supported for, like you were mentioning, the critical client experiences.
Right.
Your clients are going to experience some grief too. If all of a sudden they don't have an account manager, or somebody else steps in and says, hey, you don't know me, but I'm going to take over your account and we're going to do great things. Really? So
and what are they thinking?
Yeah.
What are they thinking? Right? We're always, why did you just do this layoff? What's going on? Wait a minute. Is my business at risk because you can't there's so many questions that when they don't get answers, we all know that not giving answers creates fear, and fear creates disaster in the workplace at every level. One of you touched on it briefly about what happens with the workload. My non-negotiable is that managers need to sit down with their teams in person or remotely or whatever and say, okay, this just happened. Give as much information as legally they can give. We understand that not everything's going to get disclosed. Corporations talk about things differently. And then the conversation is, we have a plan of how to move forward in this team. If we went from 10 people to 4 people, we want you to know we've worked through this. We have a plan. It doesn't mean the plan's not going to change. Oh, somebody joined us. It doesn't mean the plan's not going to change. It doesn't mean that we can't, massage this, but we have taken the time. We care enough about you in this company that we actually worked on this, right? We have a plan for you to make sure that you have the support that you need, and that we understand where this is going to go.
100%. That that particular intentional planning with the managers, you can't also assume that they're going to just sit down and understand how to do it themselves. So
100%.
HR, it's a partnership between HR, the manager, the senior leader, all together. You know, where I've seen it work best and where I've helped to orchestrate it work best in that humane manner with that empathetic mindset is your extended leadership team, one level down from your senior leaders. You have a call with them. You share with them the news, let's just say a week before everything's supposed to hit. Remember, all those individuals need a couple days to process. They need to start to figure out how they're supposed to manage their workload. What do we need contingent workforce to come in? If so, when do we plug them in? Who's going to talk to the client? Is it going to be me or is it going to be another? All of those things. You can't expect people to figure that out in 24 hours, nor should you, assume that they're going to. So get to your extended leadership team at least a week before, give them a couple days to process, and then reach out individually to those leaders and do one-on-one check-ins. The thing that always strikes me as just like, how come you didn't realize this, is connecting with someone one-on-one for 15 minutes, just literally to say, how are you feeling today?
Yeah.
What's going on in your head? What can I help remove for you from a, consternation standpoint or hesitation or fear standpoint? Get to them as one-on-one human beings, not just the manager, but as the human being part of it. And if we just do that more frequently, it can really feel a little bit more settled. It will never feel easy, but feel more settled.
I love what Kate said here. Leaders need to give people the time and space to grieve the loss of their teammates. These are people we work with. These are people we spend time with. These are people that we've, connected with. I think that's so smart. A LinkedIn user said, agree, corporate empathy is sorely needed, no question. It's really amazing to me how wrong they get it so often, and how easy it can be. And I think it comes from a place of fear. Mm-hmm. And I think it comes from again, this whole idea of, and that's why we came up with this whole Wake and Shiva thing, because they're so polar opposite, right? My experience, my very limited experience in the Wake kind of environment is, we spend 2 or 3 days kind of sitting and talking about the person that's dead that might be lying in the next room, which that in and of itself is not something I'm accustomed to. But then it's, okay, great, put them in the ground and walk away, right? We're done, we're moving on. In Judaism, we sit Shiva for a week. We sit with the family, right? We're there, we're bringing food, we're talking to them. Traditionally, the family covers mirrors because there isn't even, we don't want them to worry about what they look like, right? You're grieving. We don't want you to worry about any of that. Just grieve the one you love, and everyone sticks around. And then there are other things that happen over the course of the next 30 days and then year. But this notion of we care for the living, that's what struck the chord when we were talking about it. And so in a RIF, in a reorg, whatever the reason, it could be a merger, right? I have so many friends that it happened to me, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Companies merge and they go, look, we've got redundancies, right? So boom, this is what we're going to do. And it just occurred to me, I just remembered the funniest story ever. I don't know if I can even say this. I worked for a tech company and it was acquired. We on the acquired side said it was a merger. It wasn't. They acquired us, but fair is fair. And the CEO at the time of my company created a video, and the video got out. And it was a very professional video. And for those of you who know me are going to connect to this and are going to know what it is. The video went something like this. He walked around the office and he was saying something to people, and they would say, oh, what are you going to go do? And he's like, oh, I'm going to go fishing. And he had a fishing pole. And so I'm going to go play baseball. And he was just going from room to room. I'm going to go travel the world. Like all these things he was going to do, because now his company was bought and he has millions of dollars and he can go do whatever he wants. This is the greatest time in the world for him. Meanwhile, 2,000 people just lost their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Not great PR.
No.
And the backlash, it was on the intranet. back when those existed. And the backlash was astronomical, and people were trying to pull it off the internet to show it outside. So Daisy, that would be a good one for you. And then they pulled it down. It was so obtuse in his thinking, right? And I just remembered it. I hadn't thought about it in over 10 years, but it just occurred to me that that was kind of a not great thing to do.
Well, that kind of leads into what my non-negotiable would be if I had to pick one right now.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that organizations need to budget for severance and offboarding support.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen too many times in my experience that there's some website somebody can go to, or, there's supposed to be somebody who's going to be helping with the offboarding and help kind of talk through any additional questions, and it doesn't happen. And I've taken on that role myself in the absence of adequate support, because I don't want that person who has just been part of our organization, a contributing member, and all of a sudden is out of sight and out of mind and can't get answers from anybody. So true onboarding support, to have an individual with a working email, with a working phone number, that matters. And by the way, they need to respond to the former employees as well. That always helps. But also build severance in. One of the things that struck me recently in my own personal experience is severance. Some places give it, some places don't, right? You can have policies that provide severance. You can have policies that don't provide it. It's the best, smallest thing that you can do for people who you are exiting. They didn't choose it, but you have made a decision for someone else that literally changes their life in an instant. And if you give them some sort of financial support, I'm not going to tell you what is the appropriate amount or not the appropriate amount. It's all, you've got to depend it on the business and what makes sense, right? But come up with a strategy around that and plan for it. And then guess what? If you don't end up using that in your budget, reallocate it to something else, like, I don't know, something sort of recognition wise for reaching milestones in your organization or what have you. But plan for that, because the grief of losing one's income, losing one's daily job where you have purpose, where you have a work community, where you go and you want to add value every day, when you lose all of those things and you lose your income, you start spinning. I was spinning. I'm going, oh my gosh, I have to go find a job. I need to go. I'm all over LinkedIn, job postings, like looking and there was a frenetic experience happening within my psyche that I was not prepared to deal with at all.
Right.
At all. And I'm in HR, and I've helped other people through these things, right? So talk about putting the mirror up to oneself, going, oh my goodness, what is happening to me? I'm like unraveling before my eyes, and then I started judging myself for that. And then I'm like, hold on a second, I'm experiencing something. So all of that to say, just plan for it. If you don't think that giving severance is appropriate, go talk to some of your colleagues in organizations that have experienced reorganizations or have had to lay people off. Go talk to some of your friends in your network and see how they experienced it after the fact. The brand reputation for your organization, being able or not able to hire top talent going forward, right? To manage the workload, right? That Daisy, that you were saying, that the workload gaps that'll have. There are so many downstream impacts. Just do the right thing. That's what I'm always trying to help leaders understand. Just do the right thing. How would you feel if you were sitting in that seat? So that would be my non-negotiable, is a budgeted severance planning. Make sure you give people something, and make sure the offboarding is not just a website. Make sure that it's true and meaningful for them.
Well, and if organizations, and Daisy, I'm going to turn it over to you, because I know when Laura starts talking about, what are candidates seeing and what is that going out? What is that message that's going out? So I know you're chomping at the bit on this, but I'll just say this: not all organizations are in a position, right?
That's
Money
right.
isn't always the thing, and money isn't always the thing that makes a difference. But if any organization thinks that the relationships that we build within the workforce all of a sudden are severed because somebody gets laid off, there's going to be more conversation, right? If I'm friends with someone that got laid off or I got laid off, we're still talking, right? So it's not, they may severance the relationship within the workforce, but that doesn't mean the relationship is severed outside. And that opens up a big can of worms. So Daisy, I'm going to give it.
I'm obviously client facing with my previous positions, and you build relationships with your clients and they get close to you. They become your peer. They become your friend, especially working with them years, to the point where they have you as an account manager or whatever your title is. Then they acquire another organization or they purchase another organization. Then they take you with them because you've built such a good relationship and the service that you were giving them. It doesn't matter what's happening on your back end or your corporate, but you keep that front that they're important, right? And so when they all of a sudden they hear that I'm the one now being affected by it, like in a snap of a finger, it immediately turns. The immediate question is, wait a minute, why are they getting rid of the best person that we've had a relationship with for years? And then you're bringing me somebody that I never really liked, which is, in this case, my boss.
Right.
Right. To manage that account, who was barely there, to be client facing.
Yeah.
The operational stuff for all the hospitals that I was working with. Then you bring in the boss that barely knows, what the last revenue was for that client, what were the big changes that happened, even though me communicated it to them. They walk in there like, walk me through basically what's going on in your organization, when they were clearly there with the QBRs, well, the reviews, and they're acting stupid. So now that turns them off and go, wait a minute, you should have known this. You were present in every important decisions that we made because Daisy had included you. And then now we're going to backtrack, and now I have to tell you where we're at. So they didn't even take a chance. They didn't even sit with me to go, hey, this is what's going on. So, download with me so that I can be still professional in the client's eyes. Clearly,
Right.
They just cut ties off. Bad planning. Guess what? Client left a few months after I left.
Mm-hmm.
That's millions of dollars gone.
Gone. Yep.
Right. So Kate is saying something. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Kate. Sorry.
So that's a big impact that they thought that I got rid of salary. I got rid of somebody that is strong, that might not, in their eyes, I wasn't probably strong because of whatever changes at the corporate level or the C-suite was going on, that I was just a number, despite years of servicing the clients.
Mm-hmm.
So Kate is saying, and this speaks to what we're talking about now, which is what is the line between business necessity and human responsibility, which is so critical. And Kate said, my husband was recently laid off, and despite his employment contract stating that benefits would continue through the end of the month, they were terminated immediately. As a result, we had to cancel a pre-scheduled doctor appointment and medications. I mean, that is unacceptable.
It's deplorable, actually. Yeah.
Deplorable. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so I think that message getting out, right, is really despicable. That, yes, we understand business happens. Business happens. Things change. Organizations shift. Priorities shift. Income shift. I get it. And it's an and, it's not an or.
Mm-hmm.
And if, and Kate, by law, I mean, I don't know where you are in the world, and I don't know, what your situation was, but in the US with COBRA and, all the things but that's not always even viable, because sometimes COBRA can be so expensive that people can't afford it.
It's out of control. I will tell you from my personal experience, when I looked at what it was for a month, just for me, even though my husband was on my insurance before, I was like, there's no way. There's no way. It's a mortgage payment.
Or more.
Depending upon if you have one person or your family, it could be a mortgage payment plus this.
Right. So, I mean, there is a difference. I had a client, this was so sad because I loved working with them. I had a client, some of you may remember this, the Retailer Sports Authority.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Love that place.
I love them. They were the greatest group of people. I worked with their HR and their IT teams, and we just had the best time. And still to this day, I'm friends with some of them that were there, and wonderful people, and they went bankrupt. It fell apart. It was a disaster. We're not even going to go into the whole story. So the company was eliminated, gone in a poof. And one of the things that came up, they filed for bankruptcy, and one of the things that came up was that the leadership, and if I'm saying this incorrectly, if I'm wrong here, correct me, but what I remember is that there was a big issue in the bankruptcy over the fact that the leadership at the time was refusing to allow to do anything to help with Cobra. There was some issue with being self-funded or something. I don't remember what it was, but the employees were not going to have any access to any kind of Cobra. That is, I mean, from a marketing perspective, the fact that I still remember it was over 10 years ago, and I may not remember correctly, but whatever. It's not humane. It's not the way we need to do business in the world. Just isn't, right? In the worst of circumstances, I feel that there can be planning to make sure that people are at the very least prepared in some way. Right. I will say this from an HR perspective. This isn't just about layoffs. This isn't just about RIFs. This isn't just about restructuring. Don't do it on a Friday afternoon.
Never on a Friday. Never.
Not on Fridays. You know, the expression going postal, there's a reason for that. Don't let people sit and stew over a weekend and get angry and get frustrated. It's kind of 101. You know, we always used to joke there are two things in HR. You don't mess with their money and you don't fire people on a Friday. Right?
Those are ground rules.
Ground rules, right? Mm-hmm. Table stakes in the way that we operate. And I think that these are the kind of things that we're missing out on, because it takes so little to be responsible to our humans, right? It doesn't take much at all.
It takes thoughtful planning and positive intention, for sure. The other piece of, you know, if you were saying if somebody's laid off on a Friday and that potentially they go postal over the weekend and social media, and what about the mental wellness impacts? Right. Lest we forget our own mental health in all of this, not just the people in HR and or the senior leaders that are delivering these messages, but the recipients of these messages who no longer have that level of employment. The mental health strand goes through the whole thing. So, you know, I mean, right? Like, I know that whenever I've had to lay anybody off, whether it was one person in one day or 14 people in a day in individual conversations, I need about 2 days to recover myself from the emotional roller coaster, the grief, everything else that comes into play. So think about that. You know, everyone who's listening, right? When we talk about the timing and the planning of everything, you've got to build in, yes, not just day 7 for the survivors, but how, like, you're a survivor also if you're involved in these scenarios. So you need to then carve out even extra time, because if you are in HR, for example, and you're supporting your senior leaders, the managers, the first line managers, the executive leadership team, whoever else, you're getting questions from folks who were off-boarded and you're trying to be that liaison, you need to carve out extra time for yourself. So in essence, your 8 to 10 hour day should really shrink to about 6 or less, so that you can afford yourself some moments to walk away, breathe, meditate, take a walk, whatever you need to do to gather yourself, because you've got to be at your best for everybody. How can you be at your best if you're depleting everything that's in your lamp? Who's filling your lamp at that point?
Well,
no, I was gonna say, what was the movie with George Clooney where he was running around the fire?
I know. This is how I felt at points in my career. Right. Go in, do it, boom, 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 you're out. See you later, alligator, right?
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Like, you deliver the message, you receive the message. When you receive the message, all of a sudden your access is going to be cut off, so you don't have time to pull any of your personal stuff or whatever it is. All of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, let me breathe. Let me like digest this information. All of a sudden it's like, here's your document, and you sign it right now. You need to be out of here within an hour, otherwise then return your equipment, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like, that's how harsh they go through. I'm not blaming HR, but there are also some HR leaders that need that empathy, but because they're so hardened by by doing this that the leaders itself in HR are also the ones that are so tough. And so from my experience, there are a couple of them where you try to reach out to HR, think that you would be empathetic about it. They actually put a wall up and go, I want to wash my hands. It's not my fault. This is senior leadership. So go get therapy somewhere else, not through me.
Well, sometimes it's a protective measure.
Correct.
In all fairness, sometimes I found myself not to treat the experience as transactional ever with a human being, but there's a level of self-protection that has to come up in order not to feel like you're just all over and unraveling in the moment, right? Because we've got to keep it together, right? Usually, right? The thread that holds it all together, that people come to, and everybody's losing it in the moment. So sometimes you do have to protect yourself to kind of just keep your head on straight. But at the same time, it's a balance, Daisy. Totally on point what you said. There has to be some balance of give and take. And I found myself at certain times throughout my career in these experiences saying, you know what, listen, I would love to support you. I can't do that for you today. Mm-hmm. So I want to be here focused for you. I'm not in the right headspace to talk to you. There's a level of vulnerability that not just from the senior leaders that is effective for connecting with employees, but also those of us that are in the process of delivering these messages and managing the process. Like, be vulnerable with each other and try to support each other at the most. Everybody's entitled to have a bad day or an off day. It's just, I start getting concerned when my team members may be having more off days than on days. And then I'm like, hold on, maybe you need a day off. Right. So that's another thing that managers can offer to employees. I know that you feel stressed from what's happening. We looked at your work. Why don't you take a day? Take a day, take a long weekend, what have you. Like, these are those little things, like you mentioned before, Shira, right? Those little things that people maybe think are just like, oh, well, they can just take the day off if they want to. Sometimes you need permission.
Sure. On the organization.
Sometimes you need permission.
I think that it's really interesting. In all my years leading HR, I used to do something, I think I may have talked about this before. I always like to face to the door. I would never face away from the door. And I always had my door open. It was kind of, unless I couldn't, if I was in a meeting or something. And I still have the jar. It's downstairs in the basement, but I have this crystal jar and I filled it with almond M&Ms. I used to make these special trips to find the almond M&Ms because they were harder to find. And I would leave the jar on the far corner of my desk closest to the door. And it would always be filled up, always. And it was kind of this thing where people would come by my office to take an almond M&M because it was my way of building relationship and saying, my door is always open, come. And sometimes, the reason I bring that up is because to your point, Daisy, if people are if HR leaders are truly building relationships, right, which I feel is mandatory in the role, we serve both sides. We serve the corporation and we serve the people. And that's a tough balance. But we build relationship and have authenticity, Laura, we talk about authenticity here all the time, then it makes this process so much easier. It makes it easier to go through this. And I hope for anybody that is in HR, you don't have to do almond M&Ms, but make sure you're engaged in, the process of getting to know your people. Granted, it's not always easy. Sometimes there are huge organizations, but that should be the way, in my opinion, that should be the way that HR operates.
I have a prime example of that. And it was recently. There was, again, reorganization, restructuring for a variety of reasons. And we had a lot of messages to deliver. So beyond the prepping with the leader who was going to deliver all that, we always made sure that there was empathy built into the script, into the timing of it all, did all that stuff. We were ready for a really tough day because there were a lot of really tenured employees and they really cared about what they did. They care about each other. It was a very caring organization in general. And we were speaking to one of the individuals who was being exited, and There was a level of disbelief from the employee, anger, grief, like it was all bundled up, and it was like shock and awe. And we just sat there for a couple of minutes quietly together. And at the end of the conversation, he said to us, myself and the senior leader, you know, I didn't expect to feel angry so long, but you have both made me feel like you really thought about me. You thought about how I would feel. You didn't just rush into this and rip the Band-Aid off and 30-second conversation and you're out, have a nice life. We spent 25 minutes together.
Wow.
And let him speak what he needed to speak and created some space. And that might be another tactic that HR, if you're on the phone, right? Something, if you haven't done it that way, consider it. Or if you have done it that way and you think it could be better, it's okay to spend time. Right. Nobody's telling you have to have these conversations in 5 minutes. Yeah. And at the end of that conversation, he said, thank you.
Yeah.
He actually said, thank you. We're connected. I always share with people. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Allow me to help you in your journey, et cetera. You know, and I found that more often than not, individuals reach out and connect with me and say, I've never had that experience before like that. I want to stay connected with you because you helped me through a tough time, and I appreciate that. Thanks for being a human being. That's why I show up every day.
I love that. I love that. So we do something here, Lora, called the outside in, this outside story in, right? Mm-hmm. Which is we look at, you know, we've talked about our own experiences and all of that. But Daisy, I'm going to turn this one over to you so that you can, because I think this speaks to a lot of what you know, kind of looking at that outside story and what it happens. And we have a couple of examples here that we wanted to share of kind of two different situations and two different outcomes, right?
Absolutely. Thanks, Shira. So it's a story about two layoffs, actually, and like Shira said, two outcomes. So is this from Airbnb? And you can clearly see it's up on the screen from 2020. It's the Shiva model. And then from better.com in 2021, the Wake model. Okay. As you can see on the screen, the situation, the first one for Airbnb is that they cut off 25% of their workforce. It's about 1,900 people. And then 9% of the workforce on better.com, which is 900 people. For Airbnb, business dropped 80% in about 8 weeks. And then the other one just received, you know, a little bit more cash infusion of 750 million. Outcomes are very different. So what did one side do versus the other side do? There's a lot of different things that they did very differently. One, there was a letter that was sent out. The second one was just a Zoom call with no warning. So there's like Lora said, pre-planning is very, very important. So clearly one thought about it, the other one didn't. And then one said, I'm truly sorry. It's not your fault. They acknowledge that it's them. The other one just said, well, you're just one of the lucky few that got affected by this. Again, no empathy, right? And then the other one offered the severance package with health insurance. And we all know sometimes the health insurance is more important than the actual monetary piece of it, right?
Sure.
All right. And then the other one, basically, like I said, in my own experience, they cut off all your access to everything pretty much. Monetary wise, health, insurance, and your system, or even the opportunity to say goodbye to your peers, right? And then they had an alumni talent directory, meaning that they were offering support after you have left. And then there was the ones on the other side where it said, here you go and learn from your experience. God bless, kind of thing. The other one, they redeployed, they actually offered all the services to support them. And then, again, I've also experienced this from the other side, they made it performance-based versus what was really happening on the back end. Lived it. I've been there before. Or even accusatory. Then the other one actually had the CEO of that company was actually more present in making sure that they were acknowledged and calling other companies to see if they were hiring people. I've also experienced that side from a leader that was actually very thoughtful in that regard. And the other ones where you're on your own, once again. So the outcomes were very different. Airbnb, the employees did not talk trash about them, right? The laid off people actually were talking how well they were treated during the layoff. Very big impact for brand recognition. And then the other one was that they were able to sell themselves an IPO with no negativity going on. The other side, well, guess what happened? Trash talk and TikTok, whatever platform, and now we have Glassdoor that does that. And then your employee turnover was worse because then they know that it's a bad company to be at. So employees left on their own accord. And then obviously the approval rating for the CEO was not good. What does that mean to your company, right? So that's how the two differences are.
It's an incredible story, right? Of two completely different things. And with Airbnb, it was COVID related, right? I mean, the entire world shut down. The organization understandably had to do something. I remember that really well, right? And the messaging that went out, the letter that went out went viral because it was so kind. It was so empathetic. It was something we'd never seen before in an organization. Here's what's really funny. I don't know what better.com is. What are they? Are they still? I don't even know what that is. Right? I mean, so that tells me that there's an organization with roughly 10,000 people, and I don't know. And then the thing that I find so fascinating is if they had a 90% turnover of the balance of 8,000 or 9,000 employees, the cost of
that's right,
would have put them out of business potentially.
Yeah.
So this is an unbelievable comparison of what to do and what not to do. I mean, it really just screams what we're talking about here.
And especially at the bottom where we've noted the survivors noticed and so did everyone else from the outside.
Right.
The way that's worded, it rings true. It rings true. Talent, brand reputation, going back to what we were saying before, brand reputation, your clients, the clients of your clients, who knows?
Right.
So many levels downstream. I think of it like your second, third, fourth connections on LinkedIn. Well, guess what? Happens the same thing when these clients are at their soccer games with their kids and people in the neighborhood trying, thinking about where do we go next? Who do we partner with next? Why would they want to partner with better.com?
Right. Here's what's unbelievable. The world is this big. Kate saying, ironically, the CHRO at that company was my global chief people officer in my certificate program. Right. So we can't get away from any of this.
That's
right? We are so interconnected within community, within the work that we do, with everything that's happening. We can be better at this. I'm not saying, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I'm not saying rifts don't happen, reorgs don't happen. And it's challenging. It is not easy. I'm not saying we can make it easy. I'm saying we can make it better. We can make it humane. We can make it like Airbnb, right? And that's an exceptional way of doing something. I think that there are better practices and there are better ways of going about doing this whole thing. We can sit Shiva both with our remaining employees and with our customers to say, we're here to protect you. We're here to make sure you're going to get through this. We're going to do it together. We are not just going to throw you in the ground and walk away and say, oh, well, we're done. We don't have to do this anymore. We can move on.
Well, you can do that, and then you don't have a business to go back to. So, right there, ergo the choice, right? Ergo, we always have the choice. Right. But certainly, to Daisy's point earlier, where the senior leader came in and expected the client to just give all of the information that the senior leader should have known. Hello, preparation. If that client was not important to the senior leader, then why should that client be important to anybody else? You cared for that client, Daisy, because you saw the value, there was a connection, but the 2 levels up, they need to know what's going on too. There's an accountability that transcends the job title. At the end.
May I ask you a question? You don't have to answer it. You have, I think, alluded to the fact that you are looking for something right now.
Yes. You
are looking for a job. So whoever is out there, I'm gonna, Lora doesn't know I'm doing this. So forgive me because I want to, I want, just in case anybody wants to find Lora, this is how you can find her and hire her, because she's amazing. So I'm sorry I'm doing this. I'm not sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
Well, no, thanks for putting up the younger picture of myself. So I feel like, yeah, I like that picture. My hair I had a good hair day that day.
But I think what I want to ask you is, or what are you doing when you are getting ready for an interview, when you're looking at a company's history? What does something like this play in for you? I mean, we only have about 5 minutes left, but I want to know, like, we could talk for 3 hours. What are you looking at? How would something like this better.com play out in your decision making to go on an interview?
I love that question. And it's one we should always ask ourselves and challenge each other with. The one thing that I will start to ask more intentionally of organizations during interview processes, with whether it's with recruiters or through the other rounds of interviews, or even when, I'm looking with consulting contracts and things like that, or consulting opportunities, is how do you handle separations?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
First and foremost, what support do you provide? Whether, who's involved, who runs the show on that? Some of the tactical elements that we brought up today in our conversation, will that make or break my decision personally to join an organization? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. But I also will then do more research into finding people that work in that organization, networking with them to understand, what's your experience been like? Have you gone through something like this before? So it's, what am I hearing from the interviewers versus what I'm hearing from the people that are in the field. And I think the best way to do that is to network, get to know a lot of people. I am just an avid natural networker in general. I love to connect people and myself with people and people with each other and ideas and all that kind of good stuff. And within that journey that I've been experiencing for the last few months, is my faith in humanity is rekindled. I want to let people know that I have a positive outlook. I was spiraling at the beginning, but there are so many amazing people like both of you, and so many that have joined the call today when I reached out and said, come join us for the conversation. People that have been in my network, new folks in the network. There are so many of us that want to help each other. Reach out and do that with each other and for each other. And I'm happy to speak with anybody. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn. Like Shira said, I'm happy to have any conversations with you, provide perspective, guidance, what have you. And hopefully we have some partnerships in the future, because I think that's what it's all about, Shira. And thank you for making that a reality for me today. So I'm connected with you and Daisy for life now, whether you like it or not. But hey, this is the tribe.
We love that. We absolutely love that. I think it's true, right? We build relationships. I have said my whole life, I measure the success of my life, both personally and professionally, based solely on the relationships I build and maintain. Absolutely. And I think that, that's how we get here, right? That's how we have these conversations. We're authentic, we're honest, we're telling our truths. And I think it's really exciting. And I think that you will, I think someone out there is going to see this or know about something and contact you, and it's all going to be great. And I will also share, if I may, how you can reach Daisy or me for what we do, which is really exciting, because that's what we want to do, right? We want to help make businesses make better decisions, both inside and outside. We want to help them get this message across better from the outside and not make the mistakes that we talked about with better.com, which I haven't been able to Google yet, but I will, because I'm dying to know what they do.
They're a mortgage company, sure.
They're a mortgage company. Oh, interesting. Not better. And so be interesting to see what, I'm going to do this later. But, we want to give, I talk about this a lot, right? What we do gets embedded. What we push through gets embodied. Right. There's an imprint that happens in an organization when these kinds of, shifts happen. Right. And that creates a crack in the armor. I'm like trying to come up with metaphors that are not making sense in my head at the moment. But I think that we have to be really conscious of the fact that we're embodying really negative feelings in our people, in our customers, when we're not embedding the right process, right? When we're not doing it the right way. And, that just doesn't make any sense. So reach out to all of us. We'd love to hear from all of you, whether you need us or not, whether you just want to meet us. If you're not connected to any of us or please connect with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to. And I'm going to say this again. We would love to have you on the podcast /LinkedIn Live / whatever we call this. Every week we do this on Wednesdays. And if you have something you want to share and talk about it, we'd love to hear from you too. Lora, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
I know this has been so much fun. No longer am I nervous.
Yay!
I'm just thrilled about what's ahead. So yay.
It's going to be
invite me back because we have so much more to talk about.
we 100%. We will have you back.
Awesome.
Thank you, my dear. Thanks, Daisy.
Bye. See you guys later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.